who are we in life and who are we in business if there are no signs of growth? There has to be growth.
My all-time favorite comedian
is the king of comedy himself, the original, Marc Lottering.
My first piece of stand-up for my 30th birthday. I invited my friends to a party and I said, before the party kicks off, I'm going to try this stand-up. But it was 40 minutes of me and a microphone. I hired a microphone and a keyboard. And then I took this little scarf out of my back pocket and I put it on my head and I said, let's call this character Auntie Merle. And I became everybody's mother in the room, and all my friends were screaming because I knew their mothers. We all had the same mother. So everybody was like, you know. And we just thought we were having the craziest evening. And the owner of the venue was in the room that we booked. And then he said to me, please come back for the next 2 weeks and do those 40 minutes. And I'm going to get people to come in and come and watch because I think they would love it. So it was just a natural progression. I never went back to work.
What's your creative process like?
It's a box of dry white wine. I lock myself in the room for 2 days. I generally...
Quick one. Over the past year, we've been sharing stories of impactful individuals across the continent, and this channel has been growing thanks to each and every one of you tuning in every week to watch these videos. But we have noticed that more than 70% of you who watch this content are not subscribed. So please hit that subscribe button, and I promise to bring you the stories of more impactful individuals across this continent.
I find that I'm drawn to people who probably have stamina in the space of their brand.
I think it's also an identity thing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
So when you take a break, for example, in her case, I'm sure she took years, maybe a decade off, and then it's so ingrained in who she is. It's one. Therefore, it's so easy. I'm sure it's easy for her to get back into the studio.
Yes.
To do a...
I think she's that kind of animal, and I find that to be, it's the same with, if you just go to the older side of the number line, and it's the same with Mick Jagger. I saw him a few months ago, like running on a stage.
Wow.
With a screaming stadium, and then you see the same thing on your phone happening at the same time with Taylor Swift, who could be his great-granddaughter for the same amount of people.
Yeah.
But both those individuals are, they cannot exist without that. You know, they are, the word is, I mean, passionate is almost such a lame word to talk about how much they more than likely love what they do and they won't stop.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing that would bring you back. For example, if you say taking a break for 10 years, you just can't, you can't imagine doing something else. It's when people say to me after they watch a show, they go, I could never imagine walking up onto a stage to a microphone, looking at 600 people and just deciding that you're going to talk to them for 90 minutes and you've never met them. And they have to laugh. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. And then people always say to me, I don't know. I would never leave home if I've got to do that.
It's crazy also what people think about it.
I know. And these are the people who are, because it's like a religion for some stand-up comedy fans. You know, they must see everything. And I'm more than likely like that. You cannot imagine, especially with the new material. Every time it's a new show, someone's got to hear the new material first, and they paid. So you go out there's this paying audience. I've only shared these stories with Anwar, but Anwar's not actually heard the punchlines and how they're going to be delivered. Anwar's the one who interrogates the story.
He hasn't heard the full...
Yeah. So he's nervous as hell as well. And then you walk out there and you do it, but it's the same thing, you know, the examples that I made about people who come back to go into the studio to record again. It's the same with stand-up comedians. It's a nightmare, the thought of it. But the addiction to the craft and to the art of stand-up comedy. It's so strong.
Do you get attached to that, great work of art?
I'm attached to this one now because it's so personal. And I'm attached to one of the, I've done 3 Auntie Mill musicals, and one of those storylines I'm particularly attached to. So there are shows that you do where you go, it's great, they're laughing, but I won't miss this one. I won't miss it when it's done. But it's great. And you almost, at first starts with relief. Phew, it's working. Because, okay, we go, because if I do one new show, I tour with the show for the whole year. So for me, a show that works means it's a year of employment for me. So I go, okay, it's working. But when it's done, it's going to be. But then there are other shows that I've done where I've just, been very attached to. From the K-Flats with Love was done at the beginning of my career. Still attached to that.
I've heard a lot of people speak about that one specifically.
Yeah, like kids say they were conceived on that show. Like they come up to me at Canal Walk now and they're like, yo, my mommy and my daddy played that VHS tape. So, so that, and I just like their mommies and their daddies, I'm so very attached to that one. And then there are a couple of others that stand out for me as well. But the wonderful thing about my journey with stand-up comedy is most of what I've spoken about in my shows, that is what's going on in my life at the moment. So Naughty 40 I was attached with. I turned 40 that year and I wrote a show called Naughty 40, so I remember that very well. So, which is why this one is important for me, because when my shows talk about what I'm going through, there are some shows that you can't do but for this moment now. And in this show I talk about ancestry and where I come from, which was a no-go area for my family and, dare I say it, my people for so long. You don't go into that unless you're talking about the German side of the family. But don't talk about the other people at that funeral who were very dark and who were crying. It's none of your business. You don't need to know who they were. So
what do you think that is? Is there kind of shame attached to?
Well, we live in South Africa. I should stop saying that though, because I'm now, the older I get, I realize that we carry this thing on our backs. Our country is so screwed up, but the world is a mess.
The grass is not green.
Hello, America. But, so we all have our stuff. And we've been conditioned to think, South Africa, we are so racist and we carry so much shame. Because the colorism, for example, for the brown people where I come from, was and is a major thing. How... because now you're kept apart by the government, so you're not going to be with white people and you cannot call yourself black. So now you're put in your areas to live on your own. That's just the brown people. Then within that, it's the texture of your hair. How fair are you? How dark are you? Are you speaking English first language or are you speaking Afrikaans first language? Which school are you going to? Are you living in a semi-detached house? Are you living in a freestanding house? So now you grow up like that, and at school you take that crap with you to school. Even it gets divided at primary school level already. You know who in the class lives where. They speak that way, so I'm going to be with that group. So there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of shame. Fortunately for me, I'm a stand-up comedian, so I could take a lot of that stuff to stage. And people say it's therapeutic for them when they laugh. But for the comedian themselves, it's therapeutic. Certainly for me, that's the way I deal with a lot of painful stuff in my life. That's the way I deal with it on stage. So speaking about those issues, it becomes, I think, how it's healing for me. And I'm glad I hear from the audience when they write to me afterwards on social media, whatever, how great it is for them to laugh about those things. But for me, what helps me is when I tell the stories and immediately I can hear in the theater, more than half the room is going through the same stuff.
Mm.
And to not just to the very painful stuff, but even when you're doing characters like Colin the cashier, or you heard, people saying, yeah, the Bronwyn, or these people all know characters like that, or people look to each other while they watch my shows and they go, your mother's Auntie Mo, or everybody knows somebody like that. Everybody knows someone who's going through that, and so that is the beauty of stand-up comedy and what I do.
You described your early childhood environment and growing up in apartheid, that time. What's one word you would use to describe that time, and why?
Protected is the word that I would use, because my father was the pastor of a Pentecostal church. You'll get comes to the new show. I want you to come and watch it because I talk about this. And obviously my mother is the pastor's wife. And when you bring religion into the equation, it didn't gel well with having revolutionary ideas, because the way the Bible was interpreted by many, not by all, by many people who were Christians at the time when I was growing up, was don't get too involved with riots and boycotts and things like that. It's, focus on the Lord, focus on heavenly stuff.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Your
focus.
battles will be fought for you in the spiritual realm, but don't you get too crazy. And I think, so my parents did the best. They thought they were doing the best for my brother and I to protect us from the madness that was South Africa, particularly at that time. So, for example, when we said we are definitely going to be rioting and boycotting because, for example, I remember saying to my parents, because I just went for the easiest thing that would make sense to them, I said, we can't swim where we want to swim. And that's reason enough to boycott. That's reason enough to be part of the riots, to be part of protests. And my father then built a massive swimming pool, and went a level up with a house to make it as comfortable for us as possible, because he grew up very, very poor. And my dad's thing was always, I want to give you and your brother, you must never struggle the way I struggled. But if you take that kind of comfort and coupled with religion, that's why I use the word protected. That's all that they wanted to do, to kind of cushion us from that.
What's the pros and cons of growing up like that?
I think I'll start with the cons. You are not, you're not conscientized the way that you should be, because when I then went out, and left school, I think later on in high school, you start realizing, because I went to Heathfield High and the teachers were very politicized. So that's where I was fed stuff from the real world, because your parents had to leave you with the teachers for a few hours of the day. They couldn't get involved there. And then I started realizing, we don't know a lot about what's really going on in the country, what's really going down, because it would only be when my teachers were allowed to tell us. And even when we were at school, teachers were not often given the green light to do that. But some of them, thank God, didn't care. They felt that we needed to know what was going on. So then I started feeling that something, that we're not being told everything that we should be told about what's really going on in the country. And of course, as I said, my parents had their reasons for that. And then you go out to varsity, and then you realize now you're getting a crash course, because you're really wisening up to how everybody is living, not just in your road, and that your house that reality is completely different to the reality of most of the people in the country. So, so I think I had some resentment then already. I felt, because then, of course, I was also hanging out with people who had been politicized from the time that they were 7 years old, because they went to, one of my friends would always go to union meetings with his parents, because his parents were teachers. So he grew up, and in their house, they would be hiding people who could be arrested and who could be killed. And they were hiding activists in. And that for me was exciting to hear that. I'm not saying that that's what it should have been, that my parents should have been hiding activists. But they were doing what they thought was the right thing to do. My folks were. So those were the cons of, you grow up and you feel you should have been more informed. And I think parents have a role there. I guess today that is still happening, where different South African kids are being reared in ways in which their parents think they should be reared, and it could be a disaster. Sometimes you can just hear a child talk and know immediately what's going on at home. So, but the pros is that when I got home, it wasn't because my parents were very religious. They were also very, there was a lot of positivity, to use an influencer word of this kind of time. But there was positivity floating around at home. So people would be optimistic all the time. My folks were extremely kind. My folks would never, they did not believe in screaming matches. They believed that everybody deserved kindness, and that people, if there was love in your life, it should be celebrated at all costs. And I've carried that with me into my comedy, to the extent of, I'm a strange comedian where the other comics sometimes have great fun with that, but I'm not apologetic on stage, but I don't like to be mean. Because when that was the thing at home, nobody was mean, and the belief was that nobody has been created to hurt another human being, not just physically, but no. And so if I'm on stage, I've got this thing in my head. I never ever want to 2 days later see someone who was in the show, see the person in the supermarket, and then I hide behind the handy Andy because I know that I said something nasty about that woman in row 3 and picked on her. So I don't do that. People now still claim that I used to do that, but I don't remember. But those were latecomers and they deserve that. But I don't pick on people. I try not to be mean in my comedy. And I think I got that, I know I got that from my folks. And definitely got that from my dad. I've never, ever, ever seen my father have an argument. Ever. And
do you think that's healthy?
I used to think it's not, because people say, and once again you need to come to the show, I discussed this, because people say it's not healthy not to fight. People say it's not healthy in a marriage. You've got to have, a bit of a scream now and then, because that's normal people. And now that I'm older, and married, in a relationship for 27 years, I go by that crucifix because I'm tired and I've just got a lot to watch on TV. I don't like to take up a lot of time talking about issues. But I also say, you also realize you also have an option to shut up. You have an option to, especially if you know you're right, which I am most of the time. And Anwar raises an issue, and then I go, while he's raising the issue in the kitchen, I quietly, I feel sorry for him, because I go, you can realize that you're wrong, in 2 days. And it's so embarrassing for me, because you're going to have to come and apologize to me. It's awkward. So, but I don't have time to shout now, and because I've got other stuff to do. So you don't have to have a screaming match. And I think it is healthy to be calm a lot of the time. It is healthy because you've got a brain. And what the brain actually also allows you to do, and a lot of people don't like to exercise it, but I even exercised it this morning. Because what your brain allows you to do, before something comes out of your mouth, you can actually go, what am I about to do here with this tongue of mine? Because there's so much power in what you're about to say.
Yeah, some would say that you were playing chess instead of checkers.
Exactly. And that is why and you say to me, do I think it was healthy that I've never seen my father argue? I don't know. Maybe he was just conditioned to have that in his head before walking into an argument.
I think there's a difference between shutting up, like you mentioned, which I think, of course, is more people need to shut up.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between that and suppression, because suppression is unhealthy, right?
Of course, suppression is unhealthy. And I mean, you've also got to, at some point, you can't shut up to the point of being a coward. If you've got to speak up about a situation, or you've got to speak up about the rights of people, that's a different scenario then, of course. But you most certainly can shut up when somebody, says to you, gosh, every person who drives a BMW is a dwarf. You can just go, put your BMW keys in your pocket and go, she obviously doesn't realize.
Got you.
But change the topic.
So I also read that your mom, and I'm paraphrasing, your mom made you study law. What was that experience like?
It was, I think she saw it on TV. She saw successful lawyers like in TV shows.
Yeah.
The Americans fed us all these things.
Many
in the
law
90s.
shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
And every law show, these people they look great in suits, and they always at the end of the episode end up at the local pub, which just happens to be in a 5-star hotel, and they're just having the greatest of time, and a song starts playing and they're just laughing. And that's what my mother saw for my life. So I thought, okay, well, I was attracted to the notion of the performing arts, and that was just not an option. It was unheard of that you would ever think of, I'm going to earn a living out of being on stage. And so they said to me, that is what you will do. You will, if you get into UCT, wow, and then, study law, because that will be great in conversation on a Sunday afternoon, in somebody's house at the Cape Flats. What's Mark doing? He's at UCT studying law. Please, pass the lemon meringue. So
it's more for them than you.
So it's a beautiful story to be able to say. And then I went to UCT, and I think I was great the first 2 years, because my friends remind me. So we were averaging kind of 70%, which is a wonderful thing at varsity for me. Because academically, I was never flying high. And even at high school, I was just there. I wasn't like, oh my word, watch out for that boy. He's got a great future ahead of him. So I was never that kid. So to do well when I got to varsity, that was a big thing. But then I think by year 3, I started failing quite successfully. But when you fail successfully, it's when you don't care. When you're surprised that you're passing, you go, oh, I can write my exams. They're allowing me to do that. So I was there, and because I then started realizing, because they start getting you, they start preparing you for this world of LLB. So you need to read a lot and spend a lot of time in the library and do lots of tutorials and lots of assignments. And I just knew I was created for something else, and I didn't know what it was, whether I needed to open my own shop and sell jelly tots, but I knew I needed to be with people and somehow find another career. But law, it was not going to be. I just needed to be with people who were happy and chilled. But I didn't know that meant stand-up comedy. And the clues were all there when you do a 3-year BA degree over 6 years. That something is not right here. But they wouldn't, like UCT would not let me go. I kept being invited back because they kept saying, no, there's something about you. So
As long as you're able to pay.
as long as you're able to pay, I guess, which I never did. But because you can say apartheid. So previously disadvantaged. So, and I got on well with everyone at varsity in my group, but it was on Jamison Steps. It was always outside of lecture theatres because I was never really at lecture theatres. And when I left UCT, when they did ask me to leave after the 6th year, everyone was just relieved that there was some kind of degree going to come out of this experience. And I eventually got a job in advertising because I used to be an usher at the Baxter Theatre, and I would sell sweets. And I sold sweets to one of the people who ran an ad agency, and he loved me. And he said, "What do you want to do with your life?" I said, "I studied law." He said, "That is so wrong. Come for an interview." And I went for an interview to ad agency, and I worked there for 5 to 6 years. And it changed my life because then I met copywriters and designers and project managers and, how when people would brainstorm about an ad campaign. And I just came to life with that. And there were no rules in the world of advertising as well in terms of what kind of hours you had to be working. And I was thriving.
And at that time, were you also writing on the side or just,
No, I was writing I was creeping into rooms where I had no business being into the creative rooms at the agency because I was a project manager and I was project managing a performing arts development program for high school pupils. And the big client was Volkswagen at that time, and I was working on that account. But I then started working with people who would be strategizing and coming up with campaigns. And then already I realized how happy I was to be in a room where you're writing down ideas, formulating ideas, and coming up with ideas for a potential ad campaign or for a poster campaign. We didn't really go into the world of TV. We weren't that above the line with stuff. But it excited me. And it also excited me in that the people who I worked for, in a personal way, just in terms of the way you think about yourself, they encouraged me. You have to think about yourself as a person existing in the world, not only as a person existing in Retreat, where I lived at number 49 Julius Crescent. You are from that house as well, but you are also a person in the world. And both of those things, you can travel through life like that. Not like this, like that.
It's kind of challenge your identity.
Absolutely, and take it all with you. So you walk taller. And that is why I say that was such an integral part of my life, because even then, I think towards the end of that time, I started going for auditions because I knew I needed to be on a stage. And I got offered these amazing roles in musicals, I'll have you know, because then still there was some kind of voice. And everything was then, so it was never, for example, the agency that I worked for, they understood that was the next step. Everybody could see it. So you understand what I'm trying to say to you is the process wasn't chaotic. There wasn't a fight to get onto the stage. It was like everything was falling into place for the next thing. And when I got into one particularly big show, like as a lead, even then, that wasn't yet, because I believed, I should sing, because I come from the church. Everyone who's in church believes that they should sing. And when you're on your second tequila, you actually believe you are Whitney Houston. Until you start meeting people who really can sing, and you go, oh, wait a minute, there must be another path. And then I've got onto stage, and then I could feel, there's got to be something else. I'm getting away with this, but this is not the lane. And then I wrote my first piece of stand-up for my 30th birthday. I invited my friends to a party, but we hired a venue. And Anma and I were together then already. Anma couldn't believe that this is what we're actually going to do. And I said, before the party kicks off, I'm going to try this stand-up. And we hired the venue, and it was on my 30th birthday, 4th of December. And and that would be 27 years ago. And I did it. And people were, and so it kind of was part of the party, but it was 40 minutes of me and a microphone. I hired a microphone and a keyboard. And then I took this little scarf out of my back pocket and I put it on my head and I said, let's call this character Auntie Mill. And I became everybody's mother in the room, and all my friends were screaming because I knew their mothers. We all had the same mother. So everybody was like, and we just thought we were having the craziest evening. And the owner of the venue was in the room that we booked. It was a place called the Coffee Lounge. It was a very sexy spot in town at that time. And then he said to me, please come back for the next 2 weeks and do those 40 minutes. And I'm going to get people to come in and come and watch because I think they would love it.
Wow.
And it was just a natural progression. I never went back to work. And I came back for the next 2 weeks and did the show. And that was and then I felt, when you wake up every morning, I still say this to people, when you wake up, because it's a privilege, that's why I say it. When you wake up every morning and you look forward to what you're going to do, and you know that you're doing the right thing, and you know that for some bizarre reason, should I die this afternoon, hopefully after lunch, should I die this afternoon after lunch, I can confidently tell my friends, the besties, cry a bit at the funeral because that's great for Instagram, but don't be too sad because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I discovered that a while back already. So this is my calling. This is what I should be doing, and isn't it a wonderful space to be in? And the reason I know it's a privilege is because I've had other jobs before where you go, this is not it. I'm not there yet. I thought it was, but why am I still so restless? Why am I still so unsettled? And it's okay to be unsettled because that means there's life there. That means there's not resignation. And that means you're actually hanging out with the right people. Because I find people who get settled very quickly in what they do, it's because there are also 2 or 3 people around you who are very comfortable that you're there. People don't like it when you're dreaming bigger, when you're going, actually, I love you, but cheers. Because I should be there. And you're keeping me here.
Yeah, they can only see you rise as much as they can see themselves rise. So if their limit is here, their limit for you is also here.
Yeah. And they're not happy.
100%.
They're not happy that you unsettled there.
I think you mentioned such an interesting thing there about your calling. And this fascinates me. I think I've read a lot of books on this, watched a lot of podcasts on this thing of your purpose or your calling. And, many people had different opinions about this. They have different takes on, you have one purpose and one calling. And then there's on the other side, you do many things and you experience this full life of many things. Do you think that you can still achieve this level of, because what I'm getting from that is like you super content. There's a difference between being content and being comfortable. Content is, you're not here to please anyone else. You're just here to do you. And I feel like that is such a peaceful place to be at.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you think that you can get there by perhaps not having that calling?
That's a very difficult question because, I mean, if you're getting there without having that calling, there must have been some kind of intention on your part to get to a certain point in your life. It's difficult because I would like for everybody who's watching this to get to where they want to be. And I would like for everybody watching this to not get to a point on that road when it's meant to be there, but you stop halfway and you kind of go, actually, it's fine. Yeah, that's not liquor, to be at a point in your life where you go, it's fine.
Settling.
That's like being, that's like when a waiter comes to you and you say, you know what, I don't know how you grilled this fish, but it's quite rubbery. And then you stop while you're talking and you go, actually, it's fine. I'll finish it. I'll finish it. It's fine. No, so I'd like people to get their fish grilled the way they fantasized about it, and don't be satisfied until you get what you actually wanted. Of course, I get that because a lot of people in my circle now, obviously, are married with children, and things change because life gets challenging when you had your dream, but it was you, and in the equation, more factors come into the equation as you travel along. Because there's a partner, there are kids, now there are expenses, there cars, homes have to be bought, and so suddenly you go, wait, maybe my dream was a little bit selfish because now, so I understand that as well, but still, obviously my hope for everyone is that they get what they want out of life, and that if they say they are contented, that it's not it's fine.
To that person that you described now, the one who had these dreams and then perhaps started a family, and there's, family responsibilities, expenses associated with that. To that person who may be watching, listening, do you think that is limiting beliefs? Or do you think that life is hard?
Well, to that person who's listening or watching, I would say get divorced because it's the in thing. No, I think life is hard, man. We know life is hard, and not even to people who are not only to people who have responsibilities. And now, we live in a world because we're exposed to so much as to what people are actually going through mentally and emotionally, because we come from a time when that was not spoken about. So we never knew how hard life actually was, in spite of appearances. So before those things come, I think now that people talk about it, and there's so much information out there about how we all actually arrive at the table and how little we know about what's going on with the other person on the other side of the table. And now people are talking about what they go through and the struggles that they have, and what it takes for us just to arrive somewhere and smile. Because there's a lot of pressure, because social media now enables you to see, because we believe we're seeing the truth, to see how fabulous and how successful and how lekker and how great life is out there. Oh my God. # First Thursday. Like everyone's just having a great time. But we know it's not true, but it doesn't make it less like you go, flip, man, I'm such a failure. Because now you start thinking like that earlier on already. People used to start calling themselves failures when they were quite much older. But now the pressure's on. So,
Yeah, before it was a midlife crisis. Now it seems like a quarter life
Oh,
crisis.
friend,
And even earlier.
spot on. There's that thing, that midlife crisis. It shifted. It's much earlier now, much younger. And so it's very important. One has got to watch. What you project onto people. So I again say everything that we've spoken about, I do want to say it comes with, from my side, it comes with an understanding that life's not that easy. And certainly life is hard. So yeah, I do understand that. And to people who've had or who have dreams, I still say don't stop pursuing them, because if you are with somebody who has always been your champion, that is also part of a very important part of the journey. And I've been fortunate enough to have that in my life, because quite often that does come with some kind of sacrifice for someone. Someone's got to wait a little bit because you doing your thing. It's been like that for Anwar and I. And then, they're supporting you. And once that is there, you are meant to always be there and do the same for the other person as well.
And you spoke about there being in a relationship and a life partnership with someone who perhaps have to sacrifice more than one has to sacrifice more than the other. Do you think that it's possible for both to be doing this calling and be on that mission, be whatever that may be? And do you think that they can still make it work with in a healthy, loving relationship?
Yes, you had me up until the point where you went loving. Because I can only use our situation as an example, Anwar and I. And so Anwar directs and produces most of my shows. And it became, because I do solo shows. But then for Anwar, it became a mammoth task when I suddenly started writing the musicals, because then you're working with between 20 and 30 people. And I'm not just talking about on stage. I'm now talking about set builders, designers, directors, musical directors, musicians. And he's had to manage all of that. He has to, every week, every single person has to be paid. And these shows sometimes run for 2 months. And so he does all of that. And aside from that, the creative process, we fortunately on the same page as far as where our hearts are in terms of what we want to do with our shows, in terms of how we want our people to be seen. We have the same heart and the same vision for the standard, for excellence. If it cannot exist anywhere in the world, then it's not good enough to put on stage on Wednesday night. That's how we think. So he's part of the creative process as well. So in so doing, because our hearts beat, it's to the same drum with how we think, it's made the process for us easier, so it doesn't become a Marc dream. This is Anwar and Marc doing this thing together. And I think if you are married or you are in a relationship, in a partnership, you have to change your thinking and be conscious to that as well. Because yes, I've had this dream always, this is what I saw. And when I first did my first show, I was like, oh wow, I'm so comfortable on this stage. But as we grew as a couple, you can also change your thinking by not losing the goal, the sight of, the goal that you had in mind. Not still you keep your eyes on the prize, but perhaps it's opening it up a little bit more for the two of you to do that together, and then leaving room for this very significant person in your life to grow with you. So it's about fiddling with how you saw it, but still moving forward with the same goal in sight. So it is possible. And And I've had to be very conscious of that, because when you're putting in my business to sell a ticket, when you're putting it on the poster, it's got to be the hair and Mark, and that is fed to you all the time, and that's not real, and the danger is when you start believing you're driving on the M3, there's my poster with my name on it, but it's not just you that got there. There's a team of people that work with you that got you. That's just a good business idea, to get the afro on the poster, and Mark's going to make you feel good, and get the picture of Auntie Mel. Look, there's a man in stilettos with fishnets, and it's got a whole musical happening. But there's a team of people that got you there. There's a team of people that travel the road with you, and you have to be conscious about that, and your thinking has got to change. And in so doing, when you create space for other people, they grow with you, and there's more than just one champion in this thing. So it is possible. It is possible. I think, if I can just go back a few steps, because I'm hearing us talk about it, but this is so important then, about the decision that you make about who you let into your life. Because the bigger your dream is, the lonelier the road becomes.
100%.
And I've lived that. My phone was a lot more festive and busy when I was not really known. But the more well-known I became, and I'm not a worldly phenomenon, but I'm saying in my scenario, for my life, the more well-known I became, you soon start realizing that there are certain people who fall by the wayside for two reasons. They can't keep up with the bigness of your dream and the vision that you have for your life. And then just envy. And just that is not what they see for you. And, so it's a natural instinct which we all have to be aware of, even me for myself, where you hear your friend is doing so well, and instead of going, and this is something you got to work on, but instead of going, yeah, let's go out and celebrate, you go, oh, wow, okay. I told somebody 2 weeks ago, my chummies were laughing because I said the responses you get to different situations, some people go, oh, fantastic. And other people go, we're all guilty of it. You hear something good and you go, nah, lekker. Very dangerous responses.
But it says a lot about that person, doesn't it?
It says a lot about that person, well, about all of us. I have to check myself regularly, all the time. I hear somebody else, because you can have a healthy envy as well.
Yeah.
You can go, great, and while you drive, you go, this is how I think I go, I got to stop fooling around and work harder. Yeah. I go out too much, because now I look at that person who's doing well and I go, I don't even think she drinks. I'm too festive out there. Come on, Lottering, work. That's the result of work. If that's what you want.
I think that's a good point about envy too, because the healthy envy, as you said, I think that is something that we want for ourselves, and we know that we can achieve it, and therefore when you see it in someone else, there's this
of course,
cool, lekker, nice.
Lekker.
But there's a difference between that and jealousy,
for sure,
because jealousy is not wanting it for that person, but envy, I feel, is that you can also have that, and it's also an indication of what you want. That's what I learned about that.
Totally, because jealousy also is a big flashing indicator that when you are envious, the person who is envious is never actually going to, because you are living in that. So there's a lot of bitterness and darkness and stuff, and it stops you from growing for whatever reason. Some people have been through trauma, but for whatever reasons, you just can't be.
How have you been able to remain, I guess longevity is the word?
I've slept with so many people. It's no, that's not true.
Your partner might be watching.
No, he's got stuff to do. We got a lot of work.
I'm going to send it to him afterwards.
He's not watching this. So For me, it's about you have to stay relevant. The lovers of comedy and the lovers of stand-up comedy in South Africa are quite hectic. I use the word hectic because that word is overused when we can't find the right word. They're hectic in the sense of, and I know this when the internationals come over to work here, then they say to us, gosh, you know, they do the same show for 3.5 years. Obviously, they come from bigger countries where the circuit, you know, the touring circuit, it's wider. So maybe you can go around in the UK and for 3 years, different times, different parts of, do the same show. Whereas here, you go Cape Town, Joburg, Gqeberha.
Nice.
My friend is from there, says only people who are not from there say Gqeberha. So he says, all of us who were born there, we're still in PE, but you guys are all... that's where I essentially take my show. Durban's always a gamble because Durban people only tell you on Facebook, why not us? And then you go there and 2 people are sitting in the 1,000-seater applauding. So you take the show and then you do it and then it's done. And they love you and they're coming to support you again. So your show, you have a different title next year to the show. If you repeat a gag, my audiences certainly, if you repeat a gag, they've heard it. They take it very, very personally. They're not very... people want a new show. If you've got a new title, they want a new show. So the challenge on South African comedians who do live theatre, it's heavy, you know. People they'll keep coming to you if you keep giving them fresh stuff.
What's your creative process like?
It's a box of dry white wine. I lock myself in the room for 2 days. I lie, a day. It's just one box. No, I work under pressure. So I haven't changed from the time that I was in grade 10, standard 8, where you're still studying the night before the exam. So you know the show opens on the 1st of September, and you are supposed to be working on the show. I mean, good comedians should be working on their show for 4 to 5 months. That's, you know, if you're good and you're smart and you want to be hot and ready and prepared on the night. That's on paper. It doesn't work like that in real life. You think about it for 5 months. Oh boy, do you think about it for 5 months. And you say it loudly as well. You sit and you say loudly, guys, I got to go, hey. I got to go because I must get up early tomorrow. I must write. Got the show happening. And eventually it's a month before, guys. But I start jotting things down. You know, if I don't have a lot happening in my life, and I shouldn't have, but unfortunately bills have to be paid. So you're busy running around different cities or different venues. But you should try and have your months open, say 3 months before. It's not always possible. You should. And I jot things down a lot. Now there's voice notes on my phone. So I'll go from here, talk about the 3 ladies at the desk, if anything stayed with me. Like they kept insisting that the one woman was a fan. She's not. She's the one that was on the phone. She couldn't give a shit as to I was. And I said, come, you must take a pic. You see, she's on. And I know, you know, that wasn't even a real phone call. She was just like, no. So,
you definitely observed more than I did.
No, yeah. Like she was not. And then they eventually said, just go and stand behind her. I mean, that's creepy. So, like, no, I will not go and stand behind someone who does not like me and take a picture with him. So, so you think maybe there's 3 minutes there. I would think that. You talk about my process. So that would be me. I would leave here and I would talk about this woman behind the desk. I go, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to spend 3 minutes talking about the woman who was on the phone. Was she really on the phone? Not a fan. If the audience responds, that becomes a story. If the audience responds really well, that might even become a character. she's got longer life because now people are loving this person who's not a fan. And so the process is to write things down. The process for me is if I can't stop thinking about something that makes me smile because it happened. Now but tonight I'll stop smiling about that thing. Then I know, no, it's not that funny. It was maybe funny in the moment, but not worth thinking about talking to an audience about.
It also seems like, I mean, what I'm, even by watching a lot of your content online, it's very relatable for, of course, the Cape Townian audience, but also South African audience. How do you then take that and go international? Because, I mean, you performed at, in multiple countries.
And this year we did an international tour as well. We were also we did 4 cities in Australia and in New Zealand. I think my headspace has changed now when I write. And when I come up with a funny story, it's about challenging yourself and telling yourself the story, but preparing it for a worldly audience. Because when the first half of my career was very, almost Cape Town, never mind South African, like Cape Town, and then people started referring to me, quite crudely as that funny colored guy, man. So, and then people start believing as well because people would come up to me, in an air-conditioned mall in Cape Town and go, and it would be a white person going, I've heard your show is outstanding, but can we come as well? Really, can we come as well?
Because what's your response?
Yes, darling, please come. No, I say no. Of course you can, and because the story often goes, and I'm sure it's not just for me that they go, he's funny but you have to be from the Cape Flats, or he's just going to, he just talks Afrikaans, and it just spreads, myths spread. But that was especially the first half of my career. And now, for example, you open your ticket sales in Joburg and it sells out. You cannot anticipate any longer, even now in Cape Town, who's going to be there. I can't just say, well, I can make a lot of in-jokes about Athlone, because, I can predict. And now it's unpredictable. All South Africans come to watch the show. So, and I think that's great. Because who are we in life and who are we in business if there are no signs of growth? There has to be growth. And for me, my business or what I do, there's growth in my creative process, in my thinking. Think bigger. You can think bigger for yourself. Your audience does not only have to be who you thought it could be, and growth in the audience. The work has evolved, and shouldn't it be that a funny story is a funny story? You should be able to tell a funny story anywhere in the world. Sure, I think language is a barrier maybe, and your references. I mean, you have to live in a particular country for at least 8 months, I think. If you from one country and you're going to another country and you want to make a name for yourself, you've got to be for your references to kind of change, to be accessible for that audience. But ultimately, a funny story is a funny story. And I discovered this when I would do my characters abroad, because I would think, are they going to understand Auntie Mill? Are they going to understand Schmeili, the gachi that works on the taxi? But then you contextualize it for 2 minutes before you do the character, and people get it, because everyone's got matric with exemption. So they go, we know these people. We know guys like this. That's a hustler. Every country's got somebody who's trying to, get a good deal going and to try and get you into his car, or, and of course, Colin the cashier, everybody knows the cashier. So you have to think differently. When I leave the country, though, it's English 100%, or so you think. But the minute you walk onto the stage, because the expats are the ones, that's who you target, right? For your show, you've got to go, I've got to get in the theater, it takes 1,000 people, then we've got to market this. We must reach 500 South Africans, and they'll bring their partners and friends, and we'll get 1,000 people in the theater. Expats. But what the theaters used to demand from me when I travel, they go, you cannot speak Afrikaans because you are not only getting the expats in here, because the expats bring their friends. And when I went back every year, particularly to the UK and to Australia, people start liking you, and they're not from South Africa, but they love South Africans. So you can't go over there and just away my bro, like, especially for theatre management, because they need cues. They don't know when the show ends. Like, what did he say? Is that like, when's our cue? When do we change the light on this character Shmiley? What is he saying? What does he mean away girl? So you then have to obviously, speak English, contextualize. Sure, for me, it's as though I'm like, I'm belaboring the point, but you got to contextualize. And then, of course, there's this fine line. The expats demand that you speak Afrikaans because they haven't heard it in 15 years. So they're buying a ticket, particularly for the Cape Town accent. All South Africans, no matter, even if they don't live in Cape Town, they love the Cape Flats accent. And that's what they salivate, because they don't hear it. So that's all they want to hear. So you've got to then do 94% English, and then you've got to get that 6% in there. Otherwise, people feel, that they've been cheated, and they don't want to go home afterwards. They stand in that foyer. South Africans, expats, just stand in the foyer and swear at each other in Afrikaans when they see each other. That's all they want to do, and it's an emotional experience for them. Then they go back to their lives. Nostalgic. And they bring, what I love the most is they now bring their, my original fans, their kids are now 17, 18 years old. And they bring them to the shows. I love it because they bring them to the Auntie Mo musicals. The musicals are great, because then obviously I get to write songs, which is my other passion. I love writing music, and that's what I love. And it's a different audience that comes to the musicals as well, because the people who you don't reach through stand-up, they'll come to the musicals because that's theatre, And so you're getting everybody in. But now the original fans are now bringing in their 17 and 18-year-olds, and that's great in South Africa. But in Australia and New Zealand, it's even more interesting to see, because now these kids are standing in the foyer. They've got full-on Australian accents and full-on, the New Zealand accent. But the parents who've like been speaking like, where did you park the car? The minute they see me, they're like, didn't Daddy tell you this is how we used to talk? and you see these kids like, oh, okay, what? But they love it as well, because they obviously, they're privy to the parents and the video calls with the aunties and uncles in South Africa. And now there's a South African comedian putting all this stuff on stage. So it's quite an emotional experience for the expats. But it's a focus exercise for me on stage, because I don't want to, I can't afford to have anybody drift off for 7 minutes because they didn't understand. And that's a very annoying thing for any audience member. So if you are going to go into any lingo, it can't be longer than 20 seconds at a time, because you've got to just keep everybody interested.
You spoke about something earlier, which was the more successful you get, the lonelier it becomes. I think that a lot of people will be able to, resonate with this and relate to this. How did you deal with that? And, is it as simple as being okay with the people that leave to make space for the new ones that come in?
I think it has to work that way, because also when you become successful and you're from the hood, nobody at the table at Willoughby's wants to pay. They just expect you to take it. Mark, come on, you were on TV last week. So, so if they want to fall away, that's great, you know. But I think the people who are meant to be in your life, in anybody's life, um, you know, the ones who stay, though they are meant. Those are the people, and the ones who fall by the wayside. I'm also realizing there's actually no harm in some relationships and friendships coming to an end. I think we've been conditioned to, I shouldn't say we, I have been conditioned to, it makes me a really, really good person if I can hold on to every single friendship I've made since I was 5 years old. Anma is a lot more sober about that. And I used to be, I'm like, no, gosh, I've got to call because I don't want that person to think but then I had to interrogate, you know, the reasoning behind that. Why do I have such a need to be loved by everybody, you know? And I've got this, I call it the beauty queen syndrome, you know. We're just gonna, like nobody must say anything unkind about me. But I found out along the way as well that sometimes you can actually feel when some relationships that you are having with people, when it becomes, when you spiritually sigh, when you have to see the person or before you see the, where you go, I hope this lunch is actually going to be okay, because you know what he can be like, you know. And then sometimes you have to learn that it's okay to let go of certain things, particularly when the letting go is not, sometimes it's mutual, man, and then it's even better, where you both feel, actually, you know, it's had its time and it was liquor, but we're doing different things now and we see things differently, so it's fine. So when, you know, what's the thing about the trees in the wind? Tallest trees, you know, get the most wind.
Mm-hmm.
So as you realize that your tree is growing and that you suddenly being looked at by very many people for different reasons, and then at that time you realize, okay, when I say that I've got people in my corner, I actually now carefully need to know who's here for the ride of, you know, they're just going to come along and have a great time, you know, at what they perceive to be celebrity, or who's here still, you know, for Mark, who really knows you. And I think, for me, because I don't, not that I'm into horoscopes or anything, but I've been told, because I'm on the 4th of December chart, I've been told the December people, generally, it's just having a great time, and as long as people are smiling around you, you trust them. So it's I'm not good at figuring people out quickly. If you smile at me and suddenly there's a whiskey in front of me and you go, Mark, I got it for you, I'm like, this is the best friend ever. Like, we're going to be friends till we die. So it takes a while for me to figure people out.
I think it's that being okay with the reasons, seasons, or a lifetime. And
you see, I was looking for that, but you probably have a degree. That's why you said it so well. Ek gaat hier aan vir 'n hele uur. But you just, like, Mark, surely you're referring to reasons.
I talk to a lot of smart people.
Oh, okay.
And I listen.
Yeah, so it is that, yeah. And
Yeah.
seasons for sure. It's a difficult thing to talk about, or because I think, I'm still from the school of thought where you're going, yeah, but it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't go into anything thinking that it could just be seasonal. But you could also think that way. My friends were outraged. I met a wonderful person. Sometimes you just click with people, and I meet this person. I'll even say her name, Nadia. I think it was over a year ago, and at an event, which wasn't very exciting for me. It was one of those things I was invited to, and then somebody says, meet Nadia," and we click immediately. And for me, when I say I click with somebody, it means they have a wicked sense of humor. When you meet, you just know within minutes, like wicked sense of humor, and we're going to get on. And then, it started as a joke, and I was like, "Oh wow, So I said, "No, you must come to my show," and I invited her to my show, and my friends were there. I've got a circle of friends who we're close to, like a circle of friends, and they're very protective, and the circle's very protective of the circle, and then Nadia arrived, and I introduced her to my circle of friends, and I said, "This is my new best friend." And they were like, "What?" No, especially the girls in the group. In fact, I might have even said, "This is my new best friend. We're going to be friends for the summer," and now we are friends. But you will meet people like that as well, who you just will click with, and you just go, feel like I've known this person forever, and that's also okay.
That's a good way to end. I think this has been super insightful, Mark. I've learned so much about the man behind the jokes.
Thank you. Good luck with
and
editing.
the comedy.
Thank you. It's been good chatting with
We're
you
gonna
as well.
keep everything raw, like just.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
Now we'll edit it. But thank you. This was super insightful. Thank you for sharing your story
Thank you.
with us. What else can you share with us? Next steps. Tell us where we should be, which shows we should come to in the coming months and the year.
Festive season. I'm working with Alfred Adrian. It's the culmination of our tour. It's called Alfred and Marc. We've pretty much been all around South Africa, and then Australia, New Zealand, and now Namibia with a show. And we end in Cape Town on a very high note. We hope, if people buy tickets through web tickets, it's Alfred and Marc, and it's our best stand-up. And people have been loving the show. And then next year, the show that I kept referring to, which I think is going to be the show that just even new fans will like go, "Where have I been? I should have really seen this guy many more times prior to this." But it's called Marc Lottering, and that will also be available on web tickets. I think we're opening sales soon. By the time this goes out, we will. And that goes to different venues in Cape Town, because we've only had the show for 2 weeks in Cape Town. People have complained because they dressed up without buying a ticket and came to Theatre on the Bay, and it was not there. So now I'm going to the Homecoming Centre, which is the old Fugard Theatre. There's an official name for the theatre. I've not performed there before, so I'll be there for a week, and I'll be in Stellenbosch at the Droste Theater. I'm even going to Paternoster, to the Koelkamers, but all of these things are going to be on marclottering.com. Marc with a C, marclottering.com. And my whole life is there. So,
and
so
some
that's
funny
where people
blogs.
can find me. I'm going to go back to the blogs.
Please do.
Hey, did you enjoy them?
Yeah, definitely.
I want to go back to doing that. It's so time consuming.
I definitely understand why it's time consuming.
Yeah.
But I thought it was brilliant. Like, just by reading those things, I was like, firstly laughing, and then secondly, it was like so super relatable.
Okay.
About when to know when to break up.
Okay.
How to know when to tell someone that they have a booger in their nose.
Why do people take so long?
Like, honestly, like the stuff once more, it's super relatable.
Okay, I'm going to go back. This has been confirmation of that. So I'm going to go back to it. It was just time consuming, and then also suddenly a lot started happening. But now I am a little bit more organized. So I'm going to go back to doing that. But everything's on marclottering.com, and that'll be early 2025. I plan to write a new musical. So people need to look out for that as well. And then Auntie Mill, It's a Girl, has been shot professionally. It's a film now. So we plan to get people out to see that. There's been talks of releasing it through my website, which will be something quite amazing. Because, I just want to make sure that it works properly. But all my old movies, by the way, people don't know, it's on marclottering.com.
Yeah, they can rent it.
Yeah, you can rent it. So if you've never seen any of my stuff before, be selective though, because like some are good and some are not. But
And yeah,
I got my favorites there,
and
but it's on marclottering.com.
Please support Mark, because I think he has a new bathroom that he needs to tile. That's one. He
If
just
you
bought a
come
new
to
house.
my house, I didn't just buy the place. We had it for over 2 years.
Okay.
We're in University Estate on top of Woodstock
I was
there.
watching an old
People,
interview.
my bathroom is so sexy. You're going to come to my house, you're just going to want to take selfies. So now finally I'm an adult. I know why I'm working, because we worked, we paid for the towels. My friend Mario Thompson got in there. He's like a builder / project manager. He's everything.
Nice.
And Mario was facelifting the house while we were in Australia and New Zealand, just chopping down a wall or two. And Mario's got me interested in art. Gosh, I've never. Now you walk past a painting and you go, "Well, that's a." I'm like, oh wow, Mario!